So I was going to do some updates. I haven't really done them yet. There's so much to say about what's happening with COVID, but I'll stick to, at this stage, the regulations, what the government are doing. Now, in my last video, I talked about the government setting up a cabinet, which was illegal, to hide from the people the information relating to what they're doing in terms of the application and the regulations of COVID. It goes much further because they've been changing legislation, which I talked about. So they've changed the Poisons Act, they've changed the Labelling Act so that they can provide these particular medications without having to provide information about them. There's been a lot of changes to access to information from between the TGA, which is the authority, and the health website. So you'll see a lot of problems there with numbers and figures. The other thing is to note that the Constitution clearly does not provide power to the government to mandate any sort of medical procedures. Now, that is been so refined by arguments in the High Court that they just can't do it. So the next move has been to try and get the companies themselves, airlines and employers, big employers, to bring in a mandate that their employees must take the vaccines. And it's really interesting on that note, before I go any further, that they're also saying that those that have had the AstraZeneca in Australia, a lot of people taking it because they want to travel in the future, that may not be acceptable to other countries. So there's a problem here that countries that are bringing these regulations, which is every country, are changing the regulations. In other words, if you've had 2 shots here and you arrive into another country and they have a different type of shot, they'll expect you to have had those shots as well. They've also brought 195 million shots for Australia, which means around 8 or 9 for each person in Australia. So therefore, the 2 shot or the 2 jabs is not going to be adequate. There's going to be updated jabs. So this is not going to stop at any time soon. Now, I went and had a look very carefully at the Fair Work Practice legislation to try and update you on that, but they have changed it so often. So if you go and have a look, every week they've introduced either 3 or 4 changes to the legislation. Well, no, let me explain this. They've changed the legislation just recently. They've changed it twice. The changes aren't showing up so that you can't see specifically what they've actually changed unless you go through the whole piece of legislation and compare both pieces. But they've also brought in the most regulated changes I've ever seen in history, which will affect the Fair Workplace Act. So basically, if your employer says to you, you have to get a jab, otherwise you can't go to work, and you decide to fight that, which under normal terms you could have, right now a lawyer is going to be in big trouble. Any lawyer that you hire, anyone that's an expert, is going to have to go through hundreds of legislative changes which affect the act, and it's every week it's 2 pieces or 3 or 4 or 5 pieces of legislation have been changed, which will undermine those protections to the Fair Work Act provided in the first place, which is very, very frightening. It's not just those pieces of legislation, but it's probably nearly everything, and that means that the whole entire landscape in terms of your political freedoms, your medical freedoms, is being changed. We know that a lot of the regulations that we face each week are changing each week. So as a businessman, I receive updates from the police commissioner, and those updates can sometimes change the political landscape, or change the regulations, will change completely on a Friday night at midnight, and then I'm meant to operate on the Saturday knowing what all those changes are. The problem is that when they send the police out, and as people know in South Australia, I run markets for the producers, so I've been through some to the High Court to keep my markets open, because I think it's important that we have access to fresh, affordable local produce. And they sent in just recently 7 cop cars, 7 or 8 police cars, which blockaded all the entrances to my family market. So there's families walking around with their kids and their dogs. We were adhering completely to the regulations, and they didn't understand the regulations. The police were trying to shut us down, and it took an hour of arguing in front of Channel 7 cameras with these police for them to actually ring someone and find out they were wrong. They had to apologise and leave. Now, there's people all around Australia right now that wouldn't have an idea what the regulations are. And I'll tell you an example. I've got a bit of emphysema, so it's my fault. I smoked, okay? We all make decisions in life. The other day I went out yesterday, and I went into Semaphore area, and we needed to get some stuff from the supermarket, and I didn't have a mask on. I didn't have one with me, and I can wear a mask for a few minutes, so I don't mind doing that to make other people feel good about themselves. But I walked in without a mask. I explained that. They said it's fine. I said I can't wear one. And this guy who's wearing a mask gets upset and just about starts a fight with me because I'm not wearing a mask. Now, look, it's not up to me to explain to anybody my medical problems. It's if someone, I've got a friend that was raped at a young age, and obviously the thought of anything over her face frightens her. Why should she have to relive that pain and suffering because of some shitty piece of a shitty regulation written by police who really don't know what they're doing, and being enforced by officers that don't know what that law is on people that have reasons, genuine reasons not to wear a mask, or genuine reasons not to have a jab, or genuine reasons, educated reasons why they've made a decision to protect themselves by doing certain things with their body. If you, for instance, say, are allergic to peanuts and you have them at a young age and you get very, very sick, for the rest of your life you'll make a tendency to look at the paperwork to see, when you're buying something, you'll check the ingredients. You don't want to eat peanuts. You don't want to get sick again. It doesn't make you anti-nuts. It doesn't make you a lunatic. It makes you a person that knows that certain things affect your body, and we have to maintain that right. Now, if these companies, okay, are going to go around and try and force people to have a jab, but then say, well, if you get sick, we're not here to help you, same as our government's doing right now, and same as the UN and the WHO, which are pushing this through what was originally a parliamentary committee, which was dodgy and found to be fraudulent, we need to stand up. We need to start saying, okay, if SPC want to ban their employees unless they have these certain medical trials, then we need to be there to say, okay, we're not going to buy anything from you anymore. So I'll do some more updates later when I get my head around some of this legislation I'm having trouble with. There's so many changes I'm not sure I'll be able to. If anyone out there has stated a fair work act in the past and can look at the new one and maybe update me on what all the changes are, I'd like to do a bit of a review of that as well. So I'll come back on. I'd like to come back on and talk about my personal experience. Obviously 20 odd years in the political arena, friends in the WHO, friends in the UN, who I all contacted when this started, and I have some information about that I think might excite you, or, well, I don't know, excitement is really the word, but it will help you understand where we are right now and why we're here. And I truly believe this is about the jab and nothing else, and I think it's a financial thing. And when I did the first research, the same companies that make money out of wars, the same companies that were making billions and billions of dollars out of carbon credit trading are now making billions and billions of dollars out of this, and that concerns me, but we'll talk about that later. Thank you very much.